Hi, it's Maya, and you're listening to Outside the Drama, a podcast where today we're taking off other people's expectations, comparisons, and all that social popcorn. This is one of those easier said than done topics, namely, how to stop caring what others think. Because as I like to say, you're not a radio. You don't have to play to everyone's taste. And before you roll your eyes and say, yeah, classic, I've heard it like a million times, just give me a second. We're going to do this differently. No slogans like be yourself, detox your socials, or surround yourself with only positive people. Because seriously, if it were that easy, we wouldn't be talking about it, would we? All right, let's begin. You know the scenario, don't you? You have an idea. You've got some energy. Maybe you're thinking about changing jobs, a trip somewhere, a new project, or just you want to dye your hair red because why not? And everything would be fine, except suddenly you start hearing voices in your head. Not ghosts, I mean your actual thoughts. Voices of people you don't even like sometimes. Really? She's not even your type. Kind of dumb to quit your job now, don't you think? Okay, but what will your parents say? Or something fun like, aren't you afraid people will think you're crazy? Exactly. Sometimes nothing has even happened yet, and we're already choking on opinions no one has officially said out loud. Because we've already learned certain reactions. The social slide is open 24/7. And here's the question. Why do we even care so much about other people's opinions? The answer is simple. Because we're human. And no, that's not an excuse. It's a fact. Humans, by nature, are social beings. We feel good when we're accepted. It's part of our biological survival. The problem begins when other people's opinions take over our lives, and we start playing roles that suit them, not us. Instead of living, we perform. It's a bit like you're in a driving simulator, but someone else is holding the controls, and you're just sitting there, smiling pleasantly. And I'm going to say something you might not like. Sometimes the voices that block us the most come from the people who love us. Yep, exactly. Because it's hardest to follow your own path when you feel like you'll disappoint someone you trusted, or someone who gave you a lot, or who was there with you in your darkest moments. And you know what? These people might even have good intentions while not understanding your path at all. Their filter doesn't necessarily match your map. But still, their opinion can hit you like mental blinders that say, nope, I can't do this. It's too risky. They won't understand. So the question is, are you really willing to give up something important just because someone else doesn't get it? Because that's not care. That's control, dressed up as care. Okay, so let's ask, when does worrying about opinions actually cause the most damage? Point 1, when you're changing something important. New relationships, a new job, a different lifestyle, a whole new mindset. People suddenly start picking at you because your change alone makes them uncomfortable. Point 2, when you're down, in crisis, and instead of support, what you get is judgment. Because if it were me, if I were in your place, I'd have, you know that one, right? Oh God, how I love that. If I were you, classic. Well, you're not me, Karen, or Dave. We're not inside my head. You haven't cried into your toast with me. You haven't daydreamed with me about dropping everything and running. Let me tell you a story. I once had a friend who quit his job at an agency. He burned out. Period. He wanted to take a break, rest, rethink his next steps. He had a plan. But the first thing he heard from his family was, but unemployed? What if you run out of savings? You've never acted like this. You were always the responsible one. But now? And you know what? After just a few of those talks, he started doubting whether he even had the right to stop. to rest, to gather strength, to make new choices that mattered to him. So he forced himself into some random project, and within 6 months, he was burned out again. Only this time, a little worse, because someone else's opinion speaks to you dozens of times before you even have the strength to say just once, "Hey, this is my life. Let me breathe in it." So the question is, does this mean we should totally ignore other people? Of course not. That's not the point. This isn't some fanatical monologue like, I don't give a damn about anything. It's all about me. It's more like, I'll take into account what you say, but ultimately, I'll go with what resonates with me. Because look, sometimes someone says something and it hits you. It clicks. And that's when it's worth pausing and reflecting. But if after a conversation with someone you feel shut down, less confident, torn down by their better wisdom, then you're absolutely allowed to push that opinion away like sandpaper against your face. Because not everything people think about you is actually about you. Okay? Let's be practical. Step 1. Get to know yourself. Seriously, you can't build resistance to other people's opinions if you don't even know your own. If you don't know what you want, other people's comments will shape you like Play-Doh. Take stock. What really matters to me? What do I have energy for right now? What excites me, even if others laugh at it? That's your map. Step 2. Practice saying, "Thanks for your opinion," without feeling like you owe someone a follow-up. This sentence is magic. Seriously. Thanks for your opinion. I'll think about it. And that's it. No one needs a full report on what you ended up deciding. Step 3. Reduce your exposure to the expert commentators in your life. Everyone knows someone like this. Someone who has a strong opinion on your skin, your boyfriend, your job, your phase of life, your decisions, your lifestyle, how you feed your cat, and the color of your curtains. Ask yourself, do I really want to download their version of reality into my system? 'Cause hey, their opinion is not your law. And now I'm going to tell you some things I only understood with time. You don't have to explain your decisions to everyone. Sometimes, explaining your life is just an open invitation to unwanted analysis. Picture this. You show up to a family gathering, and Aunt Susan comes in swinging right out the gate. So, still single? And that job? Still that computer thing? There's no curiosity in her voice. There's judgment disguised as small talk. And now you have two choices. Either explain yourself in great detail or smile and say, "Luckily, nothing's changed. I'm still living on my own terms." Seriously, that's enough. You don't need to give anyone a timeline, a quarterly report, or a scanned version of your soul. Let's keep going. Not every they is actually a crowd. Sometimes we're scared of what people will say. But if you really break it down, it's maybe 2 or 3 people from your past and some random aunt on Facebook. Seriously. And now something important. Your life is not a democracy. And thank God, because letting everyone vote on your choices, it's a recipe for living a life that's not even yours anymore. And one more thing. Not every opinion is feedback. Feedback, real feedback, comes with empathy, context, and an actual desire to help you grow. Not, well, I would have never done that. Okay, and now what? Am I supposed to feel like an idiot because I chose differently than you? That's not feedback. That's just dumping judgment without context. What you drowned in might be exactly what helps me swim across the whole lake. So, sorry, I'll see you on the other shore, okay? And I have to say something about this obsession with likes and the plague of comment section coaches. Because let's be honest, Social media has turned opinions into a national sport. You post a picture, an idea, a project, and suddenly it feels like you're on America's Got Talent. And the jury is some random dude from TikTok, a guy from your middle school, and Karina from that parenting forum. Classic. Okay, maybe I'm exaggerating, but not by much. People comment without knowing you, without knowing your state of mind, without the slightest clue about what you've had to go through to get to where you are. And yet you still feel that punch. Maybe they're right. Maybe this is dumb. And just like that, someone who doesn't even know your middle name can delete your dream before it begins. Sounds dramatic? Yeah, because it is. So if you're asking yourself whether it's worth giving away the steering wheel of your life to people who only look through the windshield of snark, then yeah, I think you know the answer. Okay, that's it for this topic, or rather, the tiny tip of the iceberg. And if you're scared that someone's going to misunderstand you, I've got a golden thought for you. Not everyone is ready to understand you, because not everyone is ready to see beyond their own filter. And that is okay. This isn't about having the whole world applaud you. You don't have to be the radio hit that plays everywhere. You can be that offbeat track that only certain people vibe with, but they feel it deeply. Honestly, people will always feel safer when you stay in your predictable version. Any kind of change is like season 2 of a show they didn't subscribe to. But you know what? This is your show, your shoot days, your Netflix. And if someone's not a subscriber, maybe they don't get to review the plot. A little closing thought. If your decision requires you to fight for yourself, I'm here to say, do it. It's worth it. Not every decision will be spectacular. Not everyone will work out. But if you do something that's truly yours, that feeling, I did this for me, will stay with you for a long time. And that matters. You are not selfish for choosing yourself. You are responsible. You can't have freedom and still be addicted to people's opinions. One cancels out the other. So even if you're scared what someone might say, ask yourself this: will I be proud of this in 5 years? That I said no? Or yes, that I chose it, even if someone else didn't get it? I once told a group of people that I wasn't going to participate in a project everyone called an amazing opportunity. Dead silence. For real. The questions poured in, but why? Aren't you afraid you'll regret it? And you know what I said? Because I wouldn't fit there. Not because I'm too weak, but because that's not my battlefield. In the end, 2 people messaged me later and said, "Damn, I admire you for that. I had the same feeling, like it wasn't for me either." Sometimes people just need someone to say no first, out loud, so they know they can say no too. That's it for today on Outside the Drama. Thanks for being here. If this episode made you stop and think, send it to someone who might need it. And remember, you are not a radio. You don't have to play to everyone's taste. Please subscribe to the channel so you don't miss new episodes. And I'd love it if you left a comment. How do you handle all this? Maybe you've got a story worth sharing. The comment section is yours. That was Outside the Drama. I'm Maya. Talk to you next time.